Welcome back to the channel, everybody. The second channel. Most of you know me from the main channel. I'm going to try to start being a little more consistent over here on this channel. I know I've said it before, but I've got more ideas finally now. So we're just going to do just some kind of random Madden related stuff, other games potentially, and just NFL stuff, right? Like, we're just going to keep it not too structured, you know, not stuff that I would put on the main channel. So today, I'm going to rate every Madden game that I've played. I've done this in the past, but as time goes on, we've had more games come out, and my opinion has changed on some. So here's kind of the ranking. We've got best ever, we've got great, we've got good, we've got decent, which I guess you could also say is like average, we've got below average, bad, and we've got flat out trash. Now, I know my ratings are going to differ from other people's. You know, I'm going to kind of view the games as a whole product, gameplay, features, depth, you know, were the games innovative in any way with bringing new things to the game. I'm going to consider all of that. So we start out with Madden Arcade. I didn't play this very much. This was just kind of a pick up and play, just fun little kind of side Madden game. It wasn't a main Madden game, so it was decent. It kind of did what it was supposed to do. It was just fun, like 3-on-3 arcade style football. Madden 06 is a tough one because this was innovative. It brought superstar mode to the game, which isn't in the game today. It was definitely one of the better features. This was a really, really great game. I won't put it in the best ever for me. Some people would put it up here, and I wouldn't necessarily disagree. For me personally, it's like right on the outside of the games that I like the best. It's definitely very high up there. It's at the top of great. You know, if there was something in between both of these, it'd probably be there, but it is a really, really solid game. Madden 10 also very, very at the top of great to me. Sometimes when I think back, Madden 10 was my favorite game, but, you know, as time has passed and I try to just consider the game for the time, what they did, I don't think it's quite up there with best ever, but I loved the gameplay this year. It was one of the most fun games to play to me. It did introduce Ultimate Team to the game, which some people might say was a bad thing, but at the time it was definitely innovative. It, you know, changed sports games as a whole. So, you know, it was a great game to me. It had a lot of good features. The gameplay was good. It brought new things to the game, but it's still just, it's right outside of the best ever for me. Madden 11, I would say, was a good game. I don't remember enjoying Madden 11 quite as much as 06 and 10. It's definitely just a little step below, but a very, very solid game. Still one of the better Maddens, and I guess you could say recent memory, which would be the last about decade or so. Definitely a solid game, a pretty fun game, but just doesn't hold the same weight as these other two so far for me. Madden 12 is another good game. A lot of people would say this was the last really good Madden game because after that, you know, a lot of things got stripped from the game that still haven't returned or just started making a return this year, like franchise mode related stuff. I wasn't crazy about the gameplay in Madden 12. Some people really loved it. I was just like, it was okay to me, but it definitely had a lot of features. It was probably the deepest Madden game we had, you know, in a long time up until that point, and since then we might have not really seen one quite as deep. I mean, you can argue that nowadays we've got a lot of new modes and things in the game that weren't in the game back then either, but a lot of fan favorite things like Create a Team, for example, a big one that was the last year that this was in the game. So this was a good game. It kind of holds, you know, good memories for a lot of people. Just not like one of the best ones in my opinion, but pretty good. I would say Madden 15 was a decent game. It wasn't super deep. It was the first like true Madden on next gen, which was PS4 and Xbox One at the time. It was the first like full year on next gen. And I liked the gameplay this year. I thought the gameplay was really fun this year. I did enjoy playing this game, but you know, a lot of people say this was a really good year, a strong year for Ultimate Team, but outside of that, the game didn't have like crazy depth. Franchise mode was still lacking. It still could use a lot more. So I put it decent because I think there were certain aspects of the game that were good, but there were other aspects that were kind of incomplete. Madden 18 for me was a bad game. There's really nothing redeemable about this game. To me, Ultimate Team wasn't really crazy that year. Franchise mode was still lacking. Now, keep in mind, Madden 15 franchise mode was lacking as well, but you got to think we're multiple years later and franchise mode was still lacking in Madden 18, which makes it worse in my opinion. With Madden 15, it's a little more forgivable because they had just jumped over to a new generation of console, and that was kind of, you know, with sports games, that's what would happen. They would kind of take a little bit of a step back, but, you know, you would have the new graphics, you would have some better animation quality and things like that, and that's why you would get the game. But when you're in Madden 18, you're near the end of that generation's life cycle and you really hadn't added much to the game and the gameplay got worse, yeah, that was a bad game. Madden 03, definitely a great game. One of the more innovative ones. It brought the mini camp to the game, which isn't in the game today. I really wish they would bring that back. All of the mini drills and all of that were super fun to play, like rushing attack and things like that. If you've played back then, you know, gameplay for its time was good. Franchise mode was deep. I think that was the first year that Madden could be played online, so that was another big thing. So not one of the best ever, but definitely a really, really great game. This game, you know, did a lot of things for the first time, and the whole game as a package was just, it was very well put together. Now, Madden 04 is definitely in the best ever category. I'm not going to say it was necessarily the best Madden, you know, point blank, but it was like the most iconic Madden. It's the most iconic Madden cover. You know, Michael Vick was crazy in the game. They added owner mode to the game, which, you know, all these games back then were adding something new to the mix that had never been in games before. Owner mode was a big deal. Franchise mode was getting deeper. Gameplay was fun. Definitely had some glitches and things like that. All of these games did, but they weren't as widespread because online wasn't as crazy, and you know, you didn't have YouTube and things like that to find all the glitches and stuff. But this, I mean, if you think of Madden 04, you're not going to come across many people that remember this game badly. They're going to remember just the tons of fun they had playing it. Madden 20 is a tricky one for me because I did enjoy playing Madden 20. I honestly did. The gameplay was not good. It was the most boring meta, or maybe the second most boring meta ever that I could remember playing Madden. You know, franchise mode had got a little bit better. They were finally starting to do a little bit more, right? Whereas like, you know, 17, 18, 19, they really weren't doing anything. 20, they added a few things back. They did add face of the franchise to the game, which, you know, wasn't really good, but the attempt was okay, I guess, like trying to be a little more innovative and kind of do Madden's version of a My Career, but it just was not anywhere in the same ballpark. Like, there were good attempts made with this. They added abilities to the game, which I still think are fun. A lot of people don't like them, but a lot of people do like them. The thing with 20 is that they tried to do new things, and with abilities, they definitely succeeded in changing the game and adding something that was huge to the game. The gameplay wasn't good. There were still some aspects that were incomplete. They added Superstar KO, which was a brand new mode. Like, I have to give 20 credit for the fact that they did new things. This was the first time in a while that they added some, like, a decent amount of new stuff to the game, things that were important, things that changed the landscape of the game, but you still had areas that were incomplete. You still had bad gameplay. So I would probably put it in below average, but I can't put it in the same tier as like a Madden 18 because Madden 20 just flat out has so much more than Madden 18 that they can't be on the same level. And gameplay wise, they're not drastically that different. Like 18's gameplay, you know, wasn't nothing to write home about either. You know, we'll just jump to Madden 19 because like that, I think Madden 19 was trash. Madden 19 was one of the worst ever. Gameplay was awful. There was just almost nothing really new to the game that year. They started the real player motion, which was terrible. Madden 20, they had real player motion 2.0, which was worlds better. Like, Madden 20 did a lot of things right, even though they had a few things that were really, really bad, like the gameplay and the run defense, and you know, there was incomplete parts of the game, but they did a lot of things better than the previous games, and they added a lot more. So they're just not on the same playing field. 19 was awful. Madden 64, I don't remember this being anything crazy. I didn't play it a whole ton. I'm just gonna put it in decent. For the time, I'm sure it was pretty decent. I just don't remember much about it. So, you know, it can't be, if it was a really good or great game, I definitely would remember more about it, but it wasn't like an awful game either that I remember. Madden 08 for me goes up in the best ever category. Either generation, this was like the only Madden to me that was super good on both gens. Like on PS2 era, it was a super, super deep game, one of the deepest Maddens ever. But on next gen, it was the first year on next gen that they started adding more stuff, and it felt like the first true next gen, like 360 and PS3 game. This was the Madden I played the most, so I'm a little biased. I had the most fun playing this one by far. I played it more than any other game. It was pretty deep overall. It had a lot of stuff that you could do in the game. Franchise was decent. Career mode was decent. Gameplay was definitely a little more on the arcadey side. You know, they added the player weapons, which kind of similar to the abilities, but not quite similar, but they were fun to mess around with. I just love Madden 08. Madden 09, I want to put in trash. I'm going to put in bad because the thing with Madden 09 was the gameplay was just really bad. It was one of the worst. If you played online especially, it was kind of like a Madden 20 where the meta was just awful. The defense was bad. Nano blitzes were super crazy. It was just not a good gameplay year, but it, you know, it had enough stuff in the game. Like when you compare it to like a 19 or even 18, like it's probably technically a little better than 18 because it had more. Like a franchise mode was better. Career mode was better. Like it had more depth depth to it than some of these games did, but the gameplay was so bad that it just really drags it down. Madden 13, I would say, is like below average. That was the year they kind of stripped everything from the game and tried to like start a new system with franchise and all the offline stuff, and to this day it's never quite recovered. The gameplay, however, the animation quality, the graphics for the time, all that stuff I thought was pretty solid about the game, so that's why I put it in below average, but it just stripped away too much from the game to put it any higher. Madden 17 I'll also put in below average, and the only reason I put that here is because this was a really solid gameplay year overall. There were a couple things that were really overpowered, but outside of those couple things, it was a solid gameplay year. I thought it was a solid Ultimate Team year. It was still definitely a year where the offline stuff was really lacking, and that's why I can't put it higher than this. But much like I brought Madden 09 really far down, even though it was a deeper game because the gameplay was so bad, Madden 17 is kind of the opposite. I can bring it a little bit higher because overall, outside of a couple of things, the gameplay was pretty solid and balanced. Madden 2000 was a good game. This was the last one before we jumped over to the PlayStation 2, but this was a very solid game this year. Madden 2000 was, you know, one of the last of the PlayStation 1 generation, so it was pretty complete for the time, and it was just a solid game. Nothing crazy, but it wasn't bad, or, you know, decent doesn't feel high enough for it. Whereas Madden 2001, I would put decent because even though it was the first on PS2, you know, that first jump over, you know, it was missing a lot of stuff. The graphics looked a little bit better, but it wasn't like a super crazy jump right away. I feel like once you got more to 2002, 2003, the graphics started to noticeably jump more. Gameplay was fine, but there just wasn't a whole ton to do in this game. Now, Madden 2002, I do believe was good because this started adding more stuff back to the game. They added expansion teams, graphics were noticeably better. This is one of the first Maddens that I played a lot of as a youngster, so this one kind of holds a special place in my heart a little bit, so I can't put it any lower than this. Now, of course, Madden 2005 is in best ever category. Some people would say best Madden ever. This was the last year before the exclusive license kicked in. This game was very deep, added a lot to the defensive side of the ball, so, you know, they innovated on defense with, you know, different adjustments and stuff like that. They added new stuff to franchise mode this year. Definitely one of the bigger games, you know, in history. Added the hit stick to the game, which to this day is one of the biggest additions ever to Madden. So good game, solid gameplay, deep game, innovative, all the things that make a good game. This nailed all of it. And Madden 07 is probably the last one that I'm going to put up in the best ever because, simply put, to a lot of people, they will tell you the most complete Madden game ever on PS2. Not when it jumped to next gen, it was pretty bad, but on PS2, probably the best gameplay Madden overall, the most balanced, the most creative, just probably the best that gameplay was. It had the most features. I think this is probably the Madden game that had the most features overall. If you could go back and tally it all up, it had the most stuff in the game. Nothing was really removed. But the year after that, they removed a couple things. Graphically, it was good. It was the end of the PS2 generation. It was just a super solid game. Franchise was great. Online was fun. Just, you know, career mode was great. It had everything you wanted. It was the second year of career mode, so it was a little bit better. You know, it just, some people will say, like, if you really go pound for pound and get really technical, this was the best Madden game ever. Not my favorite personally ever, but definitely it's up there. Madden 21 is probably, I would say, below average. I just can't put it down with like 18 and 19 because, again, much like 20, I mean, I liked 20 more than 21, but 21, it still had, it added something new. It added the yard, right? Like, I give credit for the fact that they did something new. They added something different to the game. Franchise mode, they got some new things there, you know, throughout the year, not at the beginning, but throughout the year, they added some stuff to franchise. Like, when you compare 21, even to 17, right? 17 just, the only thing 17 has going for it is gameplay was pretty darn solid this year. But like 21 compared to 17, 18, 19, I mean, it's a world of difference in terms of depth. There's so much more in this game. So, and the gameplay isn't anything drastically worse. Like every Madden game, especially since 18 on, has been, most people would say, been pretty bad gameplay wise. So, you know, when you're talking gameplay, they're all kind of on the same playing field, but when you look at a 21 versus some of these other games, it has so much more to at least offer. There's more things to do in the game, and that counts for something, and it actually added something that had never really been in Madden before, in the yard. So that's something you've got to consider. Madden 25 was a decent game. Not a lot of depth, but just a really good gameplay game. Good player movement this year. Is one of the best, like, physics-wise, I guess you could say, Madden game, if you want to call it that. Just the movement, the gameplay was really solid this year, but otherwise not a lot of depth. But when the gameplay is to a certain level, you know, that can put it in the decent category for me. Madden 99, I don't remember too much. I would say it was probably a good game, though. Most of the earlier Maddens, like, you know, the PS1 era Maddens, like, for their time, they were good. They don't stack up today, but for their time, they were good. Madden 16, I will actually put in decent. This one might be controversial, but this game added new things to the game, right? It added the new catch system, which is still a big thing today, and it's been big since 16. Anytime you add something to the game that's new to the series and it has staying power and actually changed the game, in my opinion, for the better, outside of, you know, aggressive catches were really crazy this year, and still to this day, they can be crazy at times. Gameplay-wise, yeah, this wasn't the best Madden ever by far, but they added the new catch system. They added draft champions to the game, which is kind of a mode that's been left for dead, but this was the best year of draft champions. That's a reason this game was so big. People loved playing draft champions, and it hasn't quite been the same. So 16, you know, Ultimate Team was good this year. Obviously, franchise and stuff like that was still lacking, but overall, this game had enough decent qualities about it to put it in the decent category. And now we're here in Madden 22, which is probably another one I have to put in below average. Again, it's similar to like Madden 20 and Madden 21. Is the gameplay anything special? No. Is it anything drastically better or worse than any of the previous 4 or 5 games? Not really. But again, you know, they added more stuff to this game. They added stuff back to franchise that people wanted. Franchise mode this year is the most complete that it's been in like a decade. So that's saying something. They added home field advantage and momentum. Not something that I think has really been the biggest deal in the world, but again, something different to Madden. They're adding different things. So when you compare it to a 19, you know, a 18 and stuff like that, it has a lot more to offer, and the gameplay isn't anything drastically worse or better. So that's why I would say it's below average. But, you know, when you look at the games in below average and below, you know, none of these games are anything to write home about. It's not until you get to the decent and above category where you say, no, these are actually games that I remember fondly. All of these games here are kind of forgettable when you get down to it. But that's it for today. I'm not going to rank any of these because I didn't play any of these, so I don't have an opinion on them one way or the other. Let me know your rankings below. What is your 5 favorite Madden games? And I will see you guys next time.